Hey everybody, it's Yolie Medina, and today I'm going to be talking about the Idaho 4 case. And this is a case where Brian Kohberger pled guilty to murdering 4 students that attended the University of Idaho. And their names are Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. They lived off campus in a home near the University of Idaho. And this happened on November 13th, 2022. And these students were brutally murdered, and the crime scenes were horrific. There was a gag order, and that means there was a seal on any evidence coming out in the case. A lot of the evidence, I should say. And this was while the case was ongoing. And after Brian Kohberger pled guilty, the judge lifted this gag order. That means things can now become public. And pursuant to some of the requests by the public, which are freedom of information requests, some photographs, some investigative materials like documents, and at least one body camera video was released. However, they were redacted. In other words, they had portions blocked out. Pretty much the graphic portions were blocked out or blurred on the video. And on the photographs, they were just sort of blacked out or blurred. So what happened is the family of Maddie Mogen, or Maddie Mogen's mother, and Ethan Chapin's parents and his sister, they filed an action against the city of Moscow for a restraining order to prevent graphic photos of their loved ones from coming out. And I did a prior video on this, but I'm doing another one because the hearing was had on this matter, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the hearing. So at the hearing, there was already some, like I said, photographs and video that had come out, and some of the photographs depicted blood in areas of the room, but they did not depict the bodies or anything showing graphic mutilation of bodies or anything like that. It was just blood on a bed and traces of blood and spots of blood and whatnot. And coincidentally, the judge presiding over this restraining order action is Judge Megan Marshall, and she was the judge who was the initial judge in the Kohberger case. So she entered a temporary restraining order to prevent the release of these graphic photos until a hearing could be had. And so this hearing was had last week on August 28, 2025. And the parties argued their cases. And when I say parties, I mean the attorney for Mrs. Laramie, that's Maddie Mogen's mom, and also the attorney for the Chapins. They argued at the hearing, and a final, a final order hasn't come out as of my recording this video. We're waiting on a final order to see what's going to be released and how it's going to be released. And I did want to comment on the oral argument because I made 2 assumptions before listening to the oral argument case that were erroneous. So the first assumption I made was that the network that released the body cam specifically had done the redactions or the blurring out of the video. I did not realize, or I just thought that the city of Moscow had released that body cam unredacted, but it was actually the city of Moscow who did it. And I learned that in the hearing. And then the other thing I assumed was that the knife sheath that was found near or by the body of Maddie Mogen would be a subject of discussion, because that is one of the things, if not the only thing, that linked Brian Kohberger to the murders. And when I say that, I'm not saying it just because I'm saying it. Mr. Nye from the State Attorney General's office basically talked about that and basically said that that knife sheath was the thing tying him to the crimes. And I'll post the video where he had a interview with somebody from the Idaho Statesman. And I'll post that video to this video so you can see where he explains that this knife sheath was the only thing tying Brian Kohberger to the crime. So a lot of people, the public, they want to know, they want to see where the knife sheath was. And it's neither here nor there, but the public does have a right to know certain things. It's not for me to say whether that's right or wrong. It's just a matter of fact. The Freedom of Information Act is there for people to request information on investigations and prosecutions and whether or not the person pleads guilty or not. So what happened in the oral argument is that there is a statute, and that was the subject of the oral argument, was this statute in Idaho, and it's Idaho Statute 74-1241C. And it is under the Public Records Act, and that statute provides an exception to releasing public records under the Public Records Information Act in Idaho. It provides an exception based on privacy. And so the arguments were about whose privacy. And so it came down to the family's loved ones' privacy, the ones who were deceased. And the issue came up, well, who has standing to assert that right? And, I don't know the probate laws in Idaho, but there was a discussion about, the successor in interest being able, that would be the family, being able to assert this right of privacy to prevent graphic photos from being released to the public. And so the discussion was, well, where does it end? Where does the privacy start? Does it start with blood, just random pools of blood? Because the attorney for Mrs. Laramie and Ethan Chapin's family was arguing that even blood was considered a part of the body and therefore blood should not be shown. And I kind of took issue with that notion because it's slippery slope. Well, I don't know if I want to say slippery slope, but I kind of took issue with that notion as it being going beyond what I would think would be an invasion of privacy, because it was an awful crime and there was blood, and plus photos had already been released showing blood, not showing the bodies of the victims, but just blood. So what happened is the judge asked the city attorney and the attorney representing the city of Moscow, there were two, asked them what they based the fact that what was it that they used to base the fact that they redacted the photos before, or redacted the camera footage before they gave it to the public. And it was the privacy statute. So the city of Moscow raised this privacy objection, or they anticipated it, I should say, and they redacted the body cam. So there was this argument about what should be released, but what was missing is the knife sheath. Nobody talked about the knife sheath. And I don't know why I assumed that it would be talked about, or that would be one of the issues about having things being released, because what people want to see is this knife sheath that had the touch DNA, or trace DNA, I should say, a single source male DNA linking Brian Kohberger to the crime. And like I said, he pled guilty. I'm not arguing about that. I'm just arguing about what the public is entitled to see. And so it just so happens that this knife sheath was bloody. There was actually blood on it. And so when the attorney for the family was arguing about blood being a part of the body and that shouldn't be released, well, I thought, okay, wait a second. That's gonna, where do you draw the line on privacy and what the public has a right to know? Because as of yet, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, and I haven't been watching everything, but as far as I've seen, the knife sheath that is the subject of the DNA, or the DNA was on the knife sheath, that has not been released. So I haven't seen a photo of it. I haven't seen any video of it. So everything else I mean, a lot of things have been released, a lot of knives. Well, not a lot of knives, but there was a knife that was in the body cam. And then there was some other pictures of, I guess, Moscow PD ordered a K-bar knife and a sheath. But we haven't seen the actual knife sheath that they collected this DNA sample from on the button snap of the knife sheath. So as of right now, I don't know what's going to happen, but I foresee that the judge is going to rule in the family's favor, and I want them to, in terms of the privacy. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't want people to see my loved ones, unalived in a brutal fashion. Maybe there are some people who would, because it shows the brutality of the crime, and it can go both ways. But for those family members who don't want that to be shown to the public, I would agree with that. However, there's ways you could do it to redact or to block portions of the video and only show where the knife sheath was found. I'm assuming that there's a way. I'm not positive because I haven't seen the body cam of that, or I haven't seen the photographs of the knife sheath. I haven't seen anything. Nobody had. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but I haven't seen it, and I don't think it's out there. So where does the privacy stop and where does transparency begin? And that's my question, because this case it's a unique case. It's a lot of the information was sealed. I've never seen a case like this where the important information was sealed. And even now that the judge lifted the gag order and things are supposed to be released, there's hurdles that the public who wants to know are running into. And one of them is this privacy versus transparency. And I totally feel for the families. I want the judge to rule in their favor, but I also want it to, if there's a way they can redact the bodies and just show where the knife sheath was found. Because if the judge is going to rule that blood is a part of the body and therefore blood should not be shown, then that means the knife sheath won't be shown because it has blood on it. I mean, I don't want it to go that way. So those are my thoughts, and I'm waiting for the judge to issue her order. It didn't come out today, but perhaps tomorrow it'll come out. And those are my thoughts. So let me know what you think, and I'll post that video of Attorney General Nye talking about the knife sheath and how that was a single piece of evidence that actually linked him to the crime, even though it was trace DNA on the button snap and it's a movable object. But that was the thing that put the nail in the coffin, so to speak. In any event, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think.